Listen in on this week's Scientific American's 60-Second Science podcasts. I'm podcast editor Steve Mirsky.
If you're a savvy traveler, when you hunt for a hotel, you probably search TripAdvisor for any mention of bedbugs. But here's the dirty secret behind those bedbug sightings.
The fact that roughly two-thirds of travelers can't pick a bedbug out of a lineup tells you that probably in some cases these are unsubstantiated reports.
Mike Potter, an entomology professor at the University of Kentucky. He and his colleagues quizzed 2,000 business and leisure travelers on their bedbug ID skills through an online survey, asking them to select the bedbug silhouette from a lineup that also included ants, termites, lice, and ticks. And only a third of the respondents correctly nailed the bedbug. And those incorrect insect IDs could hit hotel owners hard, because more than half the survey takers said they'd book a different hotel if they saw just one review mentioning the bloodsuckers. Potter's co-author Jared Penn, an economist.
The implications, again, of not knowing what a bedbug really is and just kind of jumping to the worst conclusion, it can be costly for people.
The study's in the journal American Entomologist. Some cities like New York already require landlords to disclose past bedbug infestations, and 80% of survey respondents want hotels to do the same, even if the infestation is long gone. Armed with that knowledge, good luck sleeping tight. For Scientific American's 60-Second Science, I'm Christopher Intagliata. As climate change warms the Arctic, sea ice there is disappearing at record rates, sea ice that polar bears prefer to prowl. As a result, some of the bears are spending more time on solid land and are thus switching up their diets, too. Instead of the ringed seals they ate out on the ice, the bears are foraging on bowhead whale carcasses cast up on the beach. So what does this mean for the bears?
It's sort of good news, bad news.
Melissa McKinney, an ecotoxicologist at the University of Connecticut. The bad news is that bears are losing vital habitat, but the silver lining is that bears decamping to land have lower levels of toxic mercury due to their changes in diet. McKinney and her team studied hair samples from one polar bear population in Alaska from 2004 to 2011. In that time, they saw a 65% drop in the bear's mercury levels to concentrations below the known threshold for negative biological effects. And it looks like the different diet may be the reason, because bowhead whales feed on plankton, while ringed seals eat fish and other animals in which mercury has had the chance to accumulate.
And so if polar bears are feeding on prey items that are lower in the food chain, then they're likely experiencing a less mercury-contaminated food source than they would be otherwise.
Bears that feed on whales are also in better condition, have a higher body mass index, and being well-fed means their bodies don't need to break down fat and muscle energy stores, where a lot of whatever mercury they've consumed is locked up. The study's in the journal Environmental Science and Technology.
We see polar bears as a sentinel of climate change, and I think it's really important for us to remember that, either positively or negatively, climate change can shape the risks that are posed by other environmental stressors, in this case, toxic pollutants.
Of course, it would be better to stop the warming and have less mercury in the environment. But the takeaway here is that climate change has multiple effects that go well beyond disappearing ice. For Scientific American's 60-Second Science, I'm Christopher Intagliata.
The opioid epidemic is a national crisis that should not be underestimated. That's a quote from a June 1st New England Journal of Medicine perspective piece by Susan Glaude. She's a physician involved with hospice and palliative care and pain management. But the title of the piece reveals another issue related to the current situation. That title is The Other Victims of the Opioid Epidemic. Those other victims being people in desperate need of pain treatment who cannot now get it because of fears related to the prescribing and use of opioids. To try to help to avoid abuse, new forms of opioids have been created called abuse-deterrent opioid medications. These can't be crushed or dissolved, thus making them difficult to snort or inject. But
these formulations would have no impact on other opioid-related deaths, such as unintentional overdose.
Glaude, in an audio interview related to her New England Journal piece.
I think that the downside to all of these formulations are that they have the potential to make needed medication more expensive and less accessible to patients who are having opioid responsive pain and who really do require these medications. What really worries me the most about all of this is that if the medical community, the public, and policymakers get too distracted by the promise of a solution to the opioid epidemic in the guise of a reformulation of known opioids, I'm worried that we're going to lose focus on addressing all of the underlying systemic issues that have really led to the epidemic in the first place, such as lack of access to alternative evidence-based means of controlling pain, a lack of mental health and social services to address other components of suffering besides physical pain, and the lack of providers who are trained in managing drug addiction and dependence.
Glaude's full article and audio interview are available at the website of the New England Journal of Medicine. For Scientific American's 60-Second Science, I'm Steve Mirsky.
Wolves are vital players in various ecosystems, so we humans need to develop a better tolerance for them. And the wolves, they need more space. That's according to a new study in the journal Nature Communications.
The key implication here is that it sort of begins to reframe the entire discussion of conservation, because historically our model has been sort of almost a postage stamp model where we protect certain areas and try to maintain intact assemblages of animals.
University of Washington ecologist Aaron Wersing, who took part in the study, says the findings could lead to changes in how wildlife and land managers create policy.
We need to allow predators to occupy more landscapes than just remote protected areas. On the other hand, we also need to heavily manage them, recognizing again that they do conflict with people.
That's why Wersing's not calling for wolves to simply roam free throughout North America, Europe, or Australia, all places the researchers examined that have dealt with conflicts among people, their livestock, and wolves. But wildlife management plans should take into account that wolves, although they do sometimes kill ranch animals, can also prevent such deaths by driving away other predators.
Worldwide, smaller mesopredators like coyotes, jackals, and such actually themselves prey pretty heavily on livestock and can cause a lot of economic damage.
So wolves could become a net positive in their relationship with people if they're given a chance. For Scientific American's 60-Second Science, I'm Emily Schwing.